Lady Luck. I'm lucky, you're lucky, we're lucky. Take a pause and breathe in deep and savor this moment. To the ancient Greeks, she was called Tyche. To the Romans, Fortuna. To me, Lady Luck. Whomever one deems to be the purveyor of pure chance, recognize them and make sure they're in full receipt of one's tip of the cap today. Why? Let's dive in. Why do I have deep conviction in Bitcoin? What do I know that others don't? Where did the inspiration to study it closely come from? The truth is, it's only because of a series of seemingly unrelated experiences in my life that Bitcoin caught my attention. A collection of touch points, so to speak. Now, in my case, there were three subject areas that blended together: energy, investment, and technology. Let's break them down. Number one, energy. I was the co-founder of an energy tech startup at one stage, working with a UK government energy policy expert, trying to leverage the rollout of the nationwide smart meter devices. It was fascinating, it was tough going, and it failed. Specifically though, we wanted to use the data now available at household level to influence energy consumption patterns. What do I mean? Well, we envisaged a product on people's smartphones which helped them utilize appliances at certain times of day, when electricity was cleaner, when it was cheaper, when it was potentially revenue generating. Now the key piece here was the revenue. Surprise, surprise. Why would you get paid for turning the dishwasher on at midnight rather than at 8 p.m? That's a great question. The answer is a niche market you've never heard of before called demand-side response. It's when the energy grid pays you to reduce demand. Now in our case, we wanted to aggregate together the reduced demand of 100,000 homes, then sell that capacity to the grid. Why am I explaining all this? Well, the point being, I just so happen to have an insight on how energy grids actually work and the value of providing reduced demand as flexibility. Indeed, this demand reduction for flexibility is a requirement that's only going to increase with the ramping up of intermittent renewable energy infrastructure. Enter stage left, Bitcoin mining. Bang! It hit me like a ton of bricks. Holy shit. Bitcoin mining is the best provider of demand-side response I've ever seen. The ASICs are so simple to switch on and switch off. Now this is particularly key given we were trying to influence 100,000 people to change their existing behavior. Very difficult thing to do. I was digging around in the back end of the Bitcoin design and I suddenly saw value. That was an angle, a seemingly unrelated event. Now let's look at number two, investment. After the unexpected death of my father at only 48 years old, I received an inheritance and I became an investor. I made some profits. I made some losses. Learn by doing when it comes to investing can be a painful process at times. Now, what did this teach me? Well, I was studying how to protect wealth over time, using different asset classes and certain professional services, like a wealth management advisor. The key though, I specifically wanted a long-term wealth management strategy. Enter stage left Michael Saylor. I heard him ask the question, how do I know the management of my business has the best chance of survival 100 years from now? Great question. That's exactly how I've been trying to think about my own wealth strategy. So what's the answer? It's Bitcoin. What? In fact, his business MicroStrategy had reallocated from US dollars to Bitcoin in their treasury, an unprecedented move by a publicly traded business. Well, this is something I better pay attention to. And down the rabbit hole I went. Point being, this seemingly unrelated event of being an investor, well, I just so happened to be focused on how to store value over time. And I just so happen to understand the perilous nature of the status quo investment landscape. Investing is not easy. Had I not already been a long-term investor, I would not have understood the importance of a simple, long-term savings tool. Now let's look at number three of these seemingly unrelated events. Not only have I tried to found a technology company before. In fact, multiple times. I've also invested in early stage tech companies. Now, this experience ensured I was familiar with some key drivers of both growth and value when it comes to innovation. Now, specifically, I'd hunted for two things. Opportunities that disrupted status quo industries and had the ability to become digital monopolies due to network effects. And I'm like looking at Bitcoin, I'm like wow. Well, central banking, that's a business model that hasn't been disrupted effectively. It's inefficient, expensive, horrendously opaque. And then the double whammy, money trends to one. What do you mean? Well, look at monetary history. The free market depicts nicely how people converge on the best form of money. Okay, well, in short, the network effects when it comes to money are as powerful as anything I've ever looked at before, and the disruption element when it comes to central banking. God, this really is something. So point being, I just so happen to understand the nature of technology adoption and how it proliferates over time. So when you're having a tough moment later today, remind yourself, I am lucky. You're lucky. We're lucky. We just so happen to have a lens on the world that enables us to assimilate the value of Bitcoin and spark a deeper investigation into this nascent money. Now, lastly, to reflect on my own journey, this was a fact I explored a lot on my podcast, Bitcoin with Jake. I spoke with 80 guests from all over the world. Every one of them had a different story. Every one of them had a different set of touch points, and every one of them was reallocating their capital. So, cheers to Lady Luck. I'm Jake. Thanks for having me. Always send me messages. I'd love to hear from you. What are your touch points?